So the issue is, what did the language have before the amendment? Before the amendment, what it said was, no establishment required to obtain a large establishment license as provided in subsection 4A1 shall erect or maintain a physical barrier that requires the person serving food either to open a window or other aperture, or to pass food through a window or other patches, that type of thing. It's basically, the physical barrier is the bulletproof glass. So the bill originally said no business that's required to obtain this new large establishment license. The new large establishment license that this bill creates is for a restaurant that seats 30 or more. A restaurant that seats 29 or less is a small business, so there's a difference between big and small. So for 30 seats or more, you have to get a large establishment license. And in any restaurant that serves food, because you have to serve food, if you have 30 seats or more, you may not have bulletproof glass. That's the original language to take down bulletproof glass. Then it was amended, and this is what it says. By no later than January 1st, 2021. By no later than January 1st, 2021 means any time before. So if the bill passes, it could be done in a week, a month, 6 months, a year, any time before January 1st, 2021. So some people thought this means that after 2021, that we have from 2018, 19, 20 to, so we have 3 years before anything is going to be done. That's not what this amendment says. It says by no later than January 1st, 2021, the Department of Licenses and Inspection shall promulgate regulations to provide for the use or removal of any physical barrier that requires the person serving food in any establishment required to obtain a large establishment license. Once again, that is a restaurant with 30 seats or more. So, some people thought council is now doing something new. Instead of saying council's passing a law that requires you to take down bulletproof glass, council is leaving up to L&I. That's not true, because even if we pass a law, once the law is passed, the department, L&I, promulgates the regulations. That's required. So in this case, the amendment says no later, anytime before January 1st, 2021, the Department of License and Inspection shall promulgate regulations to provide for the use or removal of bulletproof glass. Then we look at the testimony of David Perry, the commissioner for L&I, and he testified that any restaurant with 30 seats or more should not have bulletproof glass. And that in his mind, any restaurant that has bulletproof glass, any restaurant with 30 seats or more, is not a restaurant. It's a retail establishment, and therefore it would not get a large establishment license, so it could not be a restaurant. So what that means is, if you have bulletproof glass, you're not a restaurant. If you're not a restaurant, then you cannot sell alcoholic beverages. If you are a restaurant, you should not have bulletproof glass. And so if you are a restaurant that sells alcoholic beverages, because you have a restaurant license, your bulletproof glass must come down. So that's all that this amendment says. So based on the testimony of the L&I commissioner, that he does not believe that a restaurant of 30 seats or more should have bulletproof glass, what we asked is, if there is, for example, a Kentucky Fried Chicken that has 30 seats or more, what happens to the bulletproof glass? and and pretty much, the health commissioner said he was unaware of any restaurant with 30 seats or more that had bulletproof glass. So the council members told him there is fast food restaurants, particularly like at Temple University and others, that have bulletproof glass. So that means their bulletproof glass would have to come down, even though they don't sell any alcoholic beverages, because the bill says any restaurant with 30 seats or more cannot have bulletproof glass. The amendment now allows for the L&I commissioner to determine the use or removal. Unless they're going to start saying there's a difference between this restaurant and that restaurant, then we get into a whole issue of selective enforcement. And then they could not regulate restaurants that sell alcoholic beverages, because if you're going to let some restaurants that don't sell keep bulletproof glass, and you're going to take down bulletproof glass in restaurants that sell alcoholic beverages, now you are preempted by state law, because we as a city cannot regulate the state license for alcoholic beverage sales. So the other thing is that the state already passed a bill which allows for the state enforcers, the PLCB, that if a city ordinance is violated, such as you didn't take down your bulletproof glass, or there's loitering, or any of that type of thing, they can immediately suspend your alcohol license. So that's new. It was just signed a couple months ago or a month ago by Governor Wolf, by the mayor. Congressman Dwight Evans was there, and just about every state rep and state senator was there. The bill that is introduced by Councilman Bass is pretty much in line with that state bill, and no merchants have disputed or disagreed with that bill. And so if there's any businesses that are not in compliance, they should be in compliance. If they're not in compliance, they can be shut down, their license can be suspended. The problem that is arising is that even if your business is in complete compliance with state law, the city is going to require that you take down bulletproof glass. And if you don't take down bulletproof glass, then you will not be in compliance with state law, and therefore you will lose your alcohol license, your license to sell alcohol. And so the issue of bulletproof glass really becomes this. Since the bill, in fact, does require, the city will require you to take down bulletproof glass, we'd like to be clear. The bill actually forces small businesses to take down bulletproof glass. If someone is saying it doesn't, if it doesn't, then we don't need to argue about this. If it doesn't take down bulletproof glass, then let's take this language out of the bill and be done with it. But because the language is there and the commissioner said that the city will take down bulletproof glass, then the real issue is, what is the problem with bulletproof glass? So at the same time, the argument is bulletproof glass is disrespectful, it insults the community, it creates hostility. And those are valid points. Whether the business is a nuisance business or not. If the business is a nuisance business, if the business is not a nuisance business, bulletproof glass, and it's not limited to a beer deli. If bulletproof glass insults the community, if it is disrespectful, if it creates hostilities, then that would be true in the Chinese takeout restaurant. Then that bulletproof glass needs to go. It would be true in the corner grocery store where they have some bulletproof glass. That would be true. And since we're at it, we might as well include SEPTA, city's municipal building, and a number of other things, because that's all bulletproof glass. There is an issue that at what point in time is the disrespect and the insult and the hostility valid, In other words, it overrides. There's an overriding reason. Like when I go to public school, I have to go through a metal detector, even though I'm a councilman. I go through a metal detector. In some places, I sign in. Should we not have a metal detector at the public school? Would it cause people to get along better without the metal detector? So, if the problem is bulletproof glass, and let's discuss bulletproof glass. If the real problem with is beer delis, whether they're nuisances or not, then let's discuss that. But I think a bill that forces small businesses to take down bulletproof glass when they believe they need it, that is an issue. It doesn't mean that there's one way to look at it. What it means is that I believe that if you are a homeowner and you want to put security in your home, if you want to put bars on your windows, if you want to put a burglar alarm in your house, I believe that's up to you. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you're a store owner, if you feel unsafe and you want to put bulletproof glass up, go ahead. If you're a business owner and you don't think you need it, you feel safe enough, then don't put it up. But I really think that is up to the business owner. And if you feel safe, you will probably not overreact. But if you don't feel safe and someone forces you to take down bulletproof glass, then you are going to probably do something to compensate for that. And that's my concern. That small business owners who are being forced to take down bulletproof glass will likely, not absolutely sure, will likely purchase firearms. They don't want to purchase firearms. They're saying they don't want to purchase firearms. The issue is if you take down the bulletproof glass, will they purchase firearms? And is that what we want to happen? So for me personally, I don't think it's the city government role to make people unsafe. And I certainly don't want to encourage people who don't want to buy firearms to start purchasing firearms. There's a whole consequence to purchasing firearms in a situation where you believe you're going to use it against another human being. So that's what I think the issue is. Outside of that, I certainly support Councilman Bass. I support her efforts to, seek compliance, to fight against nuisance businesses. But I would also say this. Even if there is a nuisance business, I would not want to expose the people who work there to being shot or stabbed. I would want them to come into compliance. I have no problem shutting down their business, with taking their license or anything like that. But exposing them to physical harm, not a thing that I would like to do.
So do you think the bill is putting some of the businesses at a disadvantage?
In what sense?
I guess in the sense of protection?
Well, here's what I would say. Yes, I mean, basically, I don't presume to judge better than you what you should do in your neighborhood. If you are comfortable leaving your doors open, your windows open, sleeping at night with the windows open, I think that's up to you. If right next door someone shuts the windows, bolts them, put bars up, I'm fine with that. That's what they want to do. Now, if you go into the suburbs, you may not be able to put bars around your porch like we have here in Philadelphia. They probably won't allow that as a general zoning thing. But here in Philadelphia, in some of our, kind of higher crime neighborhoods, people put bars across their porch and across their windows, just like it was a prison. I'm okay with that. Does it look good? No. But if that makes them feel safer, it's not hurting me, I'm okay with that. For businesses, for whatever the reason, maybe they have nothing to fear, but they're fearful. And maybe they have a lot to fear, but they don't have any fear. So whatever they think in terms of their security, I think bulletproof glass is something that will prevent a bullet or a knife, but it won't hurt the customer physically. Take down the bulletproof glass, replace it with a shotgun or a handgun, and I think there's a lot of negative consequences that come from that. And I also think that I could be the judge of how safe you should feel, but I'll let you be the judge of how safe you should feel. And no matter how much I tell you, you have nothing to worry about. If you're worried, you're going to worry. So I wouldn't say to a woman, don't carry mace. I wouldn't say to a woman, stay out late and don't hang out with your girlfriend. And you got a bunch of nice guys here at this bar. Don't worry. Don't go to the bathroom together. You're perfectly fine. If you feel you're in danger or these nice guys might turn into molesters, do what you need to do to feel safe. I would always encourage people to be wise, to be safe, and I would hope that you don't have a handgun in your purse. Mace to me is better than a handgun. Taser's better, but I'm not going to tell you how to deal with your safety. But if someone says to me, if you don't let me carry mace, I'm going to buy a gun, I would say, hey, listen, mace, if you're fine, I'm not saying mace will help you, but if you're fine with mace, you don't want to buy a gun, I'm not taking the mace away. Here, the bulletproof glass is not even mace. It won't spray you in the eyes or anything. And it is a visible deterrent to would-be robbers. When I go to the airport, I got to take my shoes off, belt off, I got to do all that. It's not because I'm a terrorist. It is to discourage terrorists. So I could say you're treating me like a criminal. I could say that because I've been to other airports where you don't have to do any of that. They have higher technology. You don't take your shoes off. They're quite secure. But they have higher technology and they go through you quite thoroughly. If the business owner has already installed bulletproof glass, I'm not going to tell them to take it down.
So yeah, it seems like a lot of talk has been kind of around the bulletproof glass, the plexiglass situation. Some, like you did kind of mention earlier, that there could be a side that it might offend some of the customers.
Yes.
Is that an underlying issue if it was removed or if it stayed?
Well, I think there's a lot of
within the communities that some of the businesses are serving.
Well, I think that if we are in a very safe area like Rittenhouse Square, and I open a business and it's completely protected with safety glass, I'm not sure how many customers I would get. They may not want to come into my store, maybe they will. If I'm in a higher crime neighborhood, then I think people are very aware of not being robbed, not being assaulted, and not being burglarized in their personal life. In my neighborhood where I've lived, since I was 3 years old, where I got stabbed in front of my house, we lived there comfortably. We lived there our whole life. But I tell my wife, don't go jogging like 5 o'clock in the morning when nobody's out. And I tell my kids, it's too late to stay out. Come back in. Why? Because we're wise. We know where we live. We don't live in a low crime neighborhood. We live in a high crime neighborhood. We just choose to live there. It doesn't mean we're ignorant of the fact of where we live. And yes, we have to be careful about burglars and robbers and all that. In fact, one of my neighbors was robbed at gunpoint, a few months before I got stabbed. And after I got stabbed, a woman, probably new to the area, was jogging in Cobbs Creek Park, and she was sexually assaulted, and ran into one of my neighbor's homes. it's not an insult to us or to anyone else to act with vigilance that, we live in a neighborhood we choose to live in. We could get out, and my neighbors too, but we choose to live there, but we have to be careful where we live. In higher crime neighborhoods, people have to be careful about schools, they have to be careful about parks, they have to be careful in general. And so some of the businesses, they will try to be careful as well. Does that offend some people? I suppose it does. But those people, they do have choices as well. And I know that they wish that the stores and all the amenities in their neighborhood was just like Rittenhouse Square. That's not very realistic. Someone has to invest in the business. They have to purchase the goods or the food. They have to hire employees or bring their family if they can't afford employees, work those hours, make whatever money they can. They don't have a retirement plan. I think a lot of people misunderstand that these businesses have a lot more money than they do. Most of these businesses are on a very thin margin, and also businesses typically need a loan to get going. A lot of the immigrant businesses, they can't get a bank loan, so they borrow from each other. They still got to pay it back. And so that is the nature, of these businesses. If a business person would be convinced that instead of selling the items that the community has purchased before they set up the business, that you could start selling tomatoes, carrots, and celery, and have a good relationship with your customers, make even a better profit, and have a healthier community than they would. But just because a city council person tells them you should change your business model, sell carrots, tomato juice, and celery, the city council person can, if they want to really be serious, create a tax incentive, help them with zoning, perhaps encourage a co-op to get started, create a opportunity of some purchases through the local school or anything. You could do a lot more than say to a business owner who is trying to support their family through their small business, you should sell tomatoes and carrots and beets instead of potato chips, tasty cakes, and chocolate milk. You could, if you really believe that, do more as a council person. Otherwise, are you going to take the risk? Are you going to be that small business person who opens up the store full of vegetables and other things? Well, then be my guest. But since I'm not taking the risk, I'm not telling anyone to do that unless I'm willing to support that legislatively, financially, zoning wise, and if I want to create an incentive. And so when they set up their business, they also decide on whether it's worth it. In other words, a lot of small business owners have gotten shot, have gotten murdered, have gotten stabbed throughout our city. And not just business owners, students, people sitting on their stoop, people who are just walking by, people driving their car have been shot. People have been victims of crime, sometimes victim of accidents. You make a determination, do you want to live in this neighborhood? Because you might be sitting on your porch and get shot. That happens. If you can move out, you move out. Some people choose to stay. It's up to you. But if you choose to stay and you decide what kind of security you need to protect your family, yourself, your home, I won't stand in your way. So I think part of this is, okay, does the bulletproof glass hurt somebody's feelings? Okay, maybe it does. On the other hand, is it worth somebody's life? And I am not at all comfortable with the city council starting to dictate to people how they should run their business and how they should secure, the safety of their employees and customers and themselves. And I really think that is up to the individual people. Now, there are people in the community who may want a sit-down restaurant with curtains and silverware, and I hope they get it. But it doesn't mean that that business owner over there is going to provide that if nobody provides the money and the resources for that to happen. So, for anybody who wants that to happen, you can try to come up with incentives, assistance, and other things. But for a small business owner, even if you gave them a $5,000 tax credit, to take down their bulletproof glass, it may not be worth their life. They may not do that. And so it's easy for me to sit behind this desk and tell people what to do. But they're in the position of choosing between their life and their livelihood. And, and I would say we all pretty much understand that your life is not worth much without a livelihood. Yeah, you may be free to suffer. I mean, the thing about America is, yeah, you could live in a democracy, but if you don't have a job, you can't feed your family, you can't feed yourself. That's not really much of a life. And so I would never want to stand between, people and force them to choose between life and livelihood. Life, livelihood, and any other thing. So for me, I do agree, and I'm a friend of Cindy Bass. I'd like to say that. We disagree on this issue. I don't think for 1 minute she has any ill will. I think she's trying to do the best she can, and she sees it in the way that she does for the good of her community and for the good of our city. I see it quite differently, and I think that's the good part about democracy. We can disagree, and it will come out in a vote on Thursday. And maybe after that, maybe in a courtroom or maybe somewhere else, but we will see. I certainly hope that